Let's break down the Ducks here at the Voice of College Football. We got Rian Winter on the line from Sports Chat 503. Rian joins us on a regular basis to do just this. Rian, how's it going?
Fantastic, Mark. Thanks so much.
Of course. Let's talk about the Pac-12 champions. A lot of people are going to take little angst with that, but Oregon took advantage of a little scheduling quirk and the 2020 season being what it is. So whatever happened in 2020, that's the way it had to happen. And it was an uneven schedule for everyone and just chaos. And you played the games. And we were just happy to have some college football. And the Ducks won the Pac-12 with a game of the year performance against USC, of course, lose the Fiesta Bowl. So I'm taking us to the quarterback situation because for me, in watching the Fiesta Bowl, a 34-17 loss to Iowa State, not taking the play into consideration, but I remember conversation about Tyler Shuff after the game, and basically that he was basically in his backyard going home to spend time with his family, and that I thought based on the conversation there at the Fiesta Bowl that it sounded like he was ready to come back and be ready to go for 2021, but he is transferred and set us up for this quarterback situation in 21, and whether you were surprised that Tyler Shuck moved on.
Yes and no. I mean, again, not a great ending. Like you said, in his backyard, first game where you could have the family there, and really felt like his job was taken during that game. Felt like he had lost his job as the starting quarterback, and that was not something that anybody wants to see happen. Obviously, started the year fairly strong. The offense was pretty creative. About halfway through the year, it just stalled out, and the confidence waned a little bit, and you could see it in his body language. You could see it in the decision making by the coaches. And then in the last games, they went with some packages with Anthony Brown for the first time all year. Hadn't seen Anthony Brown all year, transfer from Boston College, and a guy who's a veteran quarterback. And I guess I tend to think maybe just it took him a little bit longer to get with the playbook. A lot of different ups and downs with COVID or whatnot. Because in my mind, the coaches are going to play who's the best quarterback that gives them the best option to win, right? And they see him in practice every day. And so when people are saying halfway through the year, man, this guy, he's not up to snuff and he can't play the game the right way. Because again, for the last 30 years, Oregon's offense has been the crown jewel. The defense has been a struggle sometimes, but the offense bailed them out half the time. So rarely have we ever had issues with the offense. This year, they lost 2 games back-to-back, Oregon State and Cal, because the offense didn't score. And at the end of the Oregon State game, the offense couldn't get a first down. So if you just get a first down, you win that game. Close out the clock, they couldn't do it. So the offense was really a question mark for the first time in years, and it scared a lot of Duck fans. So Tyler, I felt like had done what he had done his best, and he knew that the incumbent was already there. Anthony Brown is the veteran, and the young kids coming up are really good. And so he knew that he had 3 years of eligibility because he didn't have the 1 year counted against him with COVID, and had already got 2 degrees, and he's ready to move on. And I'm really excited for him. He's going to Texas Tech. I think it's a good fit. I think he could go to a lot of places in the country, D1, and be successful.
Yeah, it was 13 touchdowns and 6 picks on the stat sheet. We discussed a number of these fourth quarter meltdowns during the season and in the aftermath. Again, I thought it was his team. Anthony Brown, I thought, would compete for the job, but then once Shook was named the starting quarterback and turned in a decent season, I thought it was his throughout. Anthony Brown had a 20-touchdown, 8-pick season for Boston College, so he's an experienced guy. And I got to tell you, Ryan, before we brought you on, I thought, okay, well, it must be Anthony Brown's team, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, no, the young guys are really going to push for it. I think Oregon's got a pretty good thing going on right now. Their recruiting is completely next level. So every single class that comes in is going to put pressure on the next class that's there. I mean, technically, these kids are getting better as the program gets younger. And that's, again, something that we don't really see that often in college football. We see the development. We see the kids get stronger, kids grow up. The difference between a 22-year-old kid and an 18-year-old kid is pretty significant, especially at the quarterback position. I think it's pretty lofty goals to put on some of these 18-year-old kids to be able to think they can take over a D1 offense and do magical things with it. I think a lot of freshmen get out there and they suffer. They don't really know the playbook that well. They don't really have that skilled control of their game, and the game moves so much faster at the college level. So, I got to give a lot of credit to the Oregon coaching staff because I think they played it well. They didn't upset Anthony Brown throughout the whole year. He stayed with it. He stayed engaged. They didn't lose him at all. When Tyler Shuck transferred, he's now the starter. And now he looks at it from a perspective of, hey, this is all on me. They've got a humongous game to start the year to go to Ohio State. I would hate to put a freshman in the position to go play Ohio State at the Horseshoe. I mean, it made great experience for the future, but if you're going to try to be competitive in that game, I don't think you give it to a freshman, no matter how good the freshman is. But you know what? Sometimes these kids are magical and they come out and they do amazing things. Ty Thompson's going to have the opportunity to do that. Ty Thompson's going to have an opportunity to come out here and compete. There's two freshmen, though, last year that you can't overlook. Jay Butterfield's one of them, who I just had a conversation with today. And then Robbie Ashford's the other one. Robbie Ashford right now is a two-sport athlete, starting center fielder for the Oregon baseball team. So I tend to think there's a lot of competition in that quarterback room, and the coaching staff, there's a lot on the line right now. They have a really good team, a really solid defense. If their offense doesn't get in order real quick, there's going to be major questions.
So we're going to see this Butterfield interview on your channel.
Yeah, what I try to do is throughout the offseason just kind of get with these guys. And like I'm saying, I'm not really a media guy, so I just kind of try to tell their story, kind of get to know what makes them tick, get some insider information, a little bit about how the operations go and whatnot, and just kind of let Duck fans get to know the kids.
Really good stuff there. So again, head on over to Sports Channel 503 and check out Ryan's work and his various player interviews. CJ Verdell and Travis Dye are names that we're familiar with across college football. Because of the shortened season, the stats aren't going to wow anyone from last year, but they're experienced guys, again, that have been productive in the past. How does the running back situation stack up?
I think the running back room's strong, and Sean Dollars is the other name to add to that. And I think the running back room's very strong. What's unique about the running back room versus the quarterback room is a lot of guys can get action there. You can rotate guys in and out throughout a 4-down sequence versus quarterback, where the kid, basically the second stringer, is going to be holding that clipboard or throwing in signs unless you're up by 20 with 2 minutes to go. So I think the running back room has been solid. These guys have come out since freshman year and been very, very good players. Very different running backs. Travis Dye is much more of a receiving running back, does great work out of the backfield, good between the tackles as well, don't get me wrong. But CJ Verdell is the classic prototypical running back, West Coast running back, low to the ground, explosive, good decision maker, hits the hole hard, all the things you want out of running back. But both these guys have speed, breakaway speed. They both broke very long runs. And then Sean Dollars, I think, is next level. He's the combo. He's the guy who is fast out of the backfield, can catch balls out of the backfield. He's the prototype new version of the college football running back. They can do a lot of things and still pick up a blitz. That's the most important thing here. This is an offense that really leans on the running game. So when they do go play action and they pull it to go to throw that ball, that running back's going to need to sit back there and block.
We appreciate what Brian Winter brings us here on a regular basis. We ask him to come on. Bam, he's here, and he's breaking down some Oregon Ducks football for us. We love it. Head on over to Sports Chat 503. Check out his work. We go to the wide receivers, and I'm seeing the same thing. Just names that I'm familiar with for the last couple of years. Johnny Johnson. You've got Devin Williams there. You got Red there as well. Those guys coming back.
Oh yeah. And then Micah Pittman. Yeah, Micah Pittman, I think, is really explosive player. Has had injuries, and this year had to deal with COVID. This was a terrible year because he got one of those contact tracing kind of a situation where he wasn't even sick, but he couldn't play and whatnot. And there were a couple of guys that got hit with that a little bit this year. Oregon played every one of their games in this last year, but they went with a very, very light lineup in a bunch of those games. So I tend to think that this next year, going into it with the full lineup, full capabilities, you're going to see some great things. The wide receivers are stacked. In my opinion, this is the best wide receiver group Oregon's probably ever had, in a collection of all these guys together in the same room, because from senior to freshman, they're going to really wow people. Even the freshmen are coming in, Troy Franklin, huge names coming in as freshmen that I guarantee you will going to get some playing time, because again, just like the running back room, you can recycle a bunch of guys through and get a lot of playing time for the wide receivers. But Jalen Red, I think, is one of the more underappreciated wide receivers Oregon has. He is there's been some issues when he was young with drops. Him and Johnny Johnson, both their freshman year, dealt with that. But he is a first down getter. And when you really need to get a play, he's an amazing player to be able to get yards after the catch as well. Micah Pittman, to me, is the most explosive of them all. He, to me, has the best speed, strength, and agility combination of all the wide receivers. I think wide receiver room right now, there's some guys who are smaller, who are faster. There's some guys who are taller, maybe a little bit slower, but bigger targets. And then there's Micah Pittman, who just fits every single one of those boxes and who's very hungry as well. He's going to be a guy to really watch.
Got Ryan Winter on the line from Sports Champ 503, breaking down the Oregon Ducks, Pac-12 champion, Rose Bowl winner 2 years ago. Another New Year's Six appearance against Iowa State this past football season. Mario Cristobal loves his offensive line, and it shows. He just doesn't talk about it. He went out there and recruited and developed guys to play at a level that, offensive line, I see it as being maybe the rarest position in regards to there being very few teams across the country that are just like, we are very capable and confident with this offensive line really doing the job. Most fan bases are like not very pleased with their offensive line. You've got a unique situation there at Oregon that it's that good. And then of course, 2 years ago, you were so experienced and so deep, and then you lost all those guys and had such an inexperienced, even though the plan and the formula was in place and the talent, all that inexperience going into 2020, how do we shape up for 21?
Yeah, they look good. They're going to bring everybody back for the most part. Even the guys who are going to be able to have an opportunity to leave are going to come back and use that extra year of COVID. Unless you're going to the NFL, I think, why wouldn't you use that extra year of eligibility? I mean, you get an extra year of education. A lot of these guys graduate early. They can get through their master's program, finish the master's program. A lot of times guys will get that fifth year. They'll start that master's program, maybe not finish it. So it really gives them a unique opportunity to kind of really dig into their skill set and see what they can do for their extra senior year. The whole thing starts for me with Alex Forsythe in the middle. I think there's a long tradition of really good Oregon centers, not necessarily guys who go to the NFL and do great things. Max Unger is probably the last really great one to go to the NFL as an Oregon center, but there's a lot of really quality offensive linemen. You can go all the way back into the 1980s and see a lot of these guys are connected still to this chain. Right now, the guys on the end are huge, and they're so big. George Moore on the end, a big, huge guy. TJ Bass was a guy who came in as a JC transfer and started at left guard the entire year, did a great job. Ryan Walk, the right guard, amazing player. He actually played with Justin Herbert in high school at Sheldon. He was a point guard, and he would throw lobs to Justin Herbert, alley-oops to Justin Herbert in high school. Grew up with Justin Herbert, played baseball, everything else like this. And he's a 6'2", a guy who probably after football will probably walk around at around 220, 240, who's now basically at about 280, 290 at 6'2". Did a great job this year at the right guard position. And so I'm really, really impressed with how these guys have worked. Big Saul on the end. He did actually tours at both guard and tackle. And then Big Stephen Jones is the other one. These guys all played really, really well. And, just like those other names became kind of more household names because they had that many repetitions, this line is going to have the same opportunity. They're going to come all the way back, the same group. They like to have 6 guys. They can rotate that one in and out, and they can play a lot of different positions. So they're a very talented group. And
you lost your tight end. We don't want to miss the tight end position, so you got to replace him.
Yeah, so Hunter Campmoyer, guy who, a really classic tight end, would have fit the mold of the Dick Butkus all the way back, kind of great, Mike Ditka type, tight end where, not Butkus, Ditka, just the classic tight end that would have fit in the 50s. Good blocker, short passing, really got better at the passing game. But, the best tight end we had last year was DJ Johnson, a guy who had transferred from Miami, defensive end and edge rush type guy. And did well, actually. I thought he played very well on the defensive side of the ball. He thought he didn't live up to his expectations. I did a great interview with him as well, and he was very candid. He said, I just thought I could do better on the offensive side. And I thought a lot of times coaches will make that change or ask for that kid to move positions on what side of the ball. But he actually asked the coaching staff, said, hey, I think I can help the team better if I played on the offense. Give me a shot at tight end. And so I think he was kind of a little bit of an unknown. I don't know if average fans really expected him to be the guy who he ended up being, which was probably the most prolific offensive player the Ducks had last year when it came to touchdowns and key timely plays. He had a great year.
Let's go to the defense, Ryan. Man, you lined it up for me before we started to record. You seem to be wide open in regards to, man, we got so much coming back. We're in good shape. Take us through the levels, maybe a key guy or two that were lost, but who are going to be those players that we're going to keep an eye on?
Well, the defensive front is going. Jordan Scott, who's a legend, Austin Falu, great players up front who served a lot of different snaps for the Ducks on the defensive line. But they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine up front. Popo takes over. Christian Williams takes over. These guys are going to be just fine. Brandon Dorless. But the guy who is the main guy is Kayvon Thibodeau. KT is the guy who, like you said, in that USC game, completely took over the Pac-12 championship game this year, completely took over the game last year, nearly blocked a punt and returned the same ball back for a touchdown in that Pac-12 championship 2 years ago. So he is as a freshman, he is a game changer. He's going to be a guy who's going to be a very high pick in the NFL draft. The NFL loves guys like him right now, edge rushers, Von Miller types that are just amazing, amazing athletes, could play any sport they wanted to, basically. And then the guy who's just quite amazing for us this last year was Noah Sewell, guy who came in as a freshman, very highly recruited, obviously older brother at Oregon before, who's probably the greatest offensive lineman in Oregon history. And, Noah just came in and just played amazing. He did amazing things, like he would be on the kickoff team and make the first tackle and then get up right away, be in the middle of the linebacker group and leading the team as a freshman. So he was just nose to the ball, always in a great place, had some injury, just like a lot of guys will do in football. But he is an amazing player with a huge, huge ceiling.
So your linebacker spot, I'm trying to go through the
Yeah, so Isaac Slade Matitia is the guy. He's going to be the guy who's going to run the ship. He's the main guy, but he actually has moved over to the will back. So Noah is now the Mike backer, and Drew Mathis as well. Drew Mathis started last year. He's been in the program a little bit longer, but this is Noah's spot going forward for sure. He makes all the right calls and does an amazing job. There's also other guys too. Jackson LeDuc was a guy that came in last year who had great things. Justin Flo was another guy, highly recruited guy who had an injury last year, but he'll come back this year with a vengeance. And this is a team that you're going to see freshmen, sophomores, redshirt freshmen playing quite a bit on the defensive side.
Corners and safeties. I see Jamal Hill led the team with 2 interceptions. That doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, but it looks like it does with him.
Yeah, and he had a great year. I mean, he came out at a year, again, we lost a lot on that side of the ball. That's the one part of the whole team that we really saw a lot of losses, because a lot of those guys were really top end talents who went to the NFL early. So, Javon Holland, Thomas Graham, Brady Breeze, all three of those guys left. Diamador Lenore, he announced he was going to go as well. He ended up coming back, which was a huge, huge save for Oregon. But yeah, Jamal had a great year. Guys on the end, Mikhail Wright, great defensive player on the backside there. Verone McKinley did a great job, safety spot. And Jordan Happel had a great year, I thought. Bennett Williams as well. But Jordan Happel was a very unique player. He's a kid who grew up in the Portland area, went to Boise State, came over with Boise State, and with our defensive coordinator last year, Andy Avalos, was able to really seamlessly come in and be able to make calls from the back end and kind of recognize a lot of the formations from his time at Boise State. So he's another guy who I expect pretty big things for this year.
Apple with 30 tackles and a pick six.
Yeah, he had a great year. The pick six was a wild one too, man. It's one of those deals. But there's a bunch of guys who play really well back there. Dante Manning is going to be a guy who's going to be one to watch. He's a young kid who's a heavy recruit who's going to be a great player. And then Steve Stevens did a great job as well. Steve Stevens the fourth.
When you look at the three levels of the defense, Ryan, again, the secondary seems to be losing the most. Where would the concerns be? Would that be pretty obvious since they're losing the most that the concerns would come from the secondary?
You know, yes, but, you know, this last year did a lot for them. I mean, for example, you know, half those guys we talked about would not have got the playing time had those other guys stayed around last year. So, you know, giving those guys whatever 6-7 games these guys got the opportunity to play was a big deal going into this next year. So I tend to think that backside's pretty solid right now. Up front, still question marks. The way that the defense works at Oregon right now is just that they have not got as much pressure up front from the defensive tackles that they've wanted to. And so hopefully as these defensive tackles come in and start playing well, you're going to start to see some more pressure up front. If Oregon can put pressure on a quarterback out here on the West Coast, you can win games. And you can win games just with your defense. Most of the time out here, though, you have to score points. So if you can't score points on the West Coast, even no matter how good your defense is, you still can't get away from it. Other places in the country, you can't say that. You can definitely win with your defense in the SEC. You can win with your defense in the Big Ten. You know, Big 12 is a little hard as well. They're outscoring people as well. But, you know, West Coast, you got to bring both sides of the ball to be successful.
Henry Cattleman hit 4 for 4 field goals. Your other kicker there, Camden Lewis, struggled. He missed 3 out of 4.
Yeah, Cam was the guy. His freshman year hit one of the biggest field goals in recent history with beating you know, or get to the point to be able to be in the Husky game, and then with the Washington State field goal. You know, but this last year, you know, Oregon's kicking is just very difficult. You know, we just can't, for whatever reason, can't seem to really get a lockdown kicker. Okay, Henry Cattleman is actually a soccer player who has transferred over and has become a little bit of a cult favorite out here. The guy is pretty shredded. He's got a great situation where he practices at his home, and a very, very unique guy. So I think going forward, then you know, Tom Snee as well as a guy, Australian punter. One of the guys from Australia there's a bunch of guys out here, Australian punters lately. So his story is very unique as well. So yeah, Oregon special teams is a pretty fun side of the ball to watch.